Hi, everybody.
Hello, I'm Ryan.
I'm Bethany.
And we are Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews.
And today we are talking about, it's kind of a fun story. That's what the game is called. It's kind of a fun story. And it is published by Pop House Collective. So,
it's kind of a fun story is exactly the phrase that you use when you're about to tell some weird, wild story. So let's say you get pulled over and you were speeding a whole bunch and the cop's like, why were you speeding and why also are you covered in like whipped cream?
Ugh.
And you're like, listen, it's kind of a funny story. And then you want to explain exactly why you were speeding and covered in whipped cream.
But I don't know if that officer wants to hear it.
Well, that's exactly what's happening here, minus the cops. Basically, you have an opportunity to tell a whole bunch of really hilarious stories about yourself and about your friends and those around you while playing. It's kind of a fun story. This is a party game. This is where you're trying to basically tell the best stories about your life. Usually at this point in the video, I would kind of go through and I would teach you guys how to play, right? Kind of like a overview. But this is just a card game with a party game. So we're just going to run through a couple different cards together so you can kind of see what that might look like.
Yep.
Basically, there's 4 styles of cards, and they each operate a little bit differently, but they're all just encouraged, it's a way to encourage conversation. All right, so the first one, this is called Point a Finger. This kind of card, basically what you're going to do is you're going to read off whatever it says, and then everybody at the table is going to go 1, 2, 3, and point at whoever they think this applies to. They're going to get the card, and they're going to get the points that go along with it. All right, so this one says, who has the worst sense of direction? All right, 1, 2, 3, go.
I don't even feel like I have really bad sense of direction. It's just that Ryan's sense of direction is like phenomenal. That I need other people to be here. So I can point to them.
I was a Boy Scout or a Cub Scout, so.
No, you weren't.
I was.
How long?
Like 2 years.
Oh my gosh.
Like kindergarten and maybe first grade.
Yep, that's why. That's why he has
I had
an
the keen
excellent
sense of direction ever since then.
That is not why. The reason why you have an excellent sense of direction is because you went to like every disc golf course within like a 100-mile radius of where we are.
That's probably more true.
Yeah. People have asked me like, have you ever been to this city? I'm like, is there a disc golf course there? Because Ryan has. Like, that's just how it was.
Yeah. All right, this next card is called Left or Right. Basically, how this is going to work is you draw the card, and you're going to choose the person to your left or the person to your right who you think it applies to the most. Give them the card, and therefore the points.
All right, and this says, who would knock someone over while Black Friday shopping? Not imaginary Joe over here.
In college, I definitely got a huge kick out of doing Black Friday shopping and being an agent of chaos.
Didn't you say once that, like, you had a shopping cart full of the Tickle Me Elmos with no intention of buying them?
Yeah, this was
That was the type of kid Ryan was.
This was, whatever it was, 2002 or 2003 or something.
Yeah.
I was in high school, and the Tickle Me Elmo thing was, like, the hottest shopping item that year or whatever, right? And my friend and I went to, this must have been... it was either Best Buy or...
Toys R Us, probably.
It might have been Toys R Us, yeah. And
R.I.P.
Back then, they weren't opening at like Thanksgiving or even at midnight. It was like 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning, and so you line up at like 2 or 3 in the morning to try to get in. And we got there crazy early for the sole purpose of going directly to the Tickle Me Elmo section, filling up shopping cart full of these Tickle Me Elmos, and just like walking around the store with it just to see what would happen. And it was hilarious. It was fantastic. And people like old ladies were like trying to like sneak Elmos out of our cart while we weren't looking and stuff like that. Like, it was great. Again, this is the kind of stories that you get to hear about when you play. It's kind of a fun story. All right, so the next card is called Everybody Answers. And pretty simply, everybody's going to answer this question, whatever it is. And then everyone's going to vote on who they think gave the best answer. All right, so this one says, what's your most irrational fear?
Okay, so my most irrational fear is probably being in wide open spaces, specifically when it deals with water. Like being in the middle of a lake, like in a boat, like if you're not on the edges, but like you're in the middle of it. Like, you know that scene in Finding Nemo when they're swimming and there's nothing up or below or beside them, and it's just like all grayness? Like, that is scarier to me than Chucky. than Friday the 13th films. Like, that terrifies me more. I can't watch that scene.
Like the idea of being like in outer space, like being on one of those like outside of the shuttle missions, something like that. Could you handle that?
Yeah, I think I could handle that. I think it's because you can't see what's in the water. You can see the void of space.
I don't. You got me on there. Well, besides that, my irrational fear would be clowns. I have an irrational fear of clowns.
And like clown adjacent things.
Yeah, I don't mess around with clowns. Clowns, no porcelain dolls, no ventriloquist dummies, none of that stuff. Keep it out of here. Don't want any part of that.
There's even some type of like animation that creeps right now.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's really stupid, but like it is.
The puppetry or like the Nightmare Before Christmas, that type of
the claymation kind of stuff,
yes.
like unnerves me. I don't know why. It's just
like I remember watching Fantastic Mr. Fox with you.
Oh, that gave me like the heebie-jeebies, like nobody's
we couldn't
business.
Finish it. Ryder's like, nope, I'm done.
Speaking of, there is one mechanism I want to point out. At the beginning of the game, everybody's going to get dealt a few cards, and one of them is called the Nope card. The Nope card is basically a way that you can, if a conversation is steering in a direction that you don't want to talk about for whatever reason, it doesn't matter what it is, something that it has a bad experience with in the past, or something that brings up some really bad memories, or it's just something that it's just off the table for you. You simply just can put up your Nope card and say, nope, that topic's not for me. And, without judgment, without anything, you just
without any discussion, you just move on.
You just move on. No problem. Go to the next card and move on. It's a great way to keep this game so that everyone can keep on playing it without having to worry about we're going to a topic that's just too much for something.
Yeah. Or having to explain yourself.
Right,
sometimes, something could be like...
It was traumatic for whatever.
Yeah.
You just say no. So everybody answers. Basically, everybody tells a story, and then after that, you vote on who you think had the best answer to that story or the best answer to that question, and they get the card, therefore the point. All right, and the last one is called the story card. The other cards are all worth 1 point. The story cards are worth 2 points. And they're a little bit longer form, typically. A lot of times they require a little bit longer answer. Whoever draws it, they just simply read the question, and then they answer it, and then they just get to keep the points, with an exception, which I'll go into in a minute. But this one particular ones that I pulled out said, what do you think most people think is true about you, but isn't? We're going to say you drew that card.
I drew that card. Okay, so I am very outgoing, and I really like people, and I actually enjoy being around people. But I'm still an introvert, and so that, drains me, even though I don't want it to, because I really genuinely like people, and I think that people are, until they actually know me really, really well, are really confused by that fact that I really need to draw away because I enjoy spending time with people.
All right, so she would read off that question, she would read the story, and then she gets the points, unless... The other cards that you might get at the beginning of the game is called Hear Me Out. The Hear Me Out card basically says, you know what?
It's a one-time use.
It's a one-time use thing. You know what? I've got a story that can one-up your story on that same category. So then what you would do is you would read off your answer to that, and then you would have basically everyone kind of vote on who they think the best answer is. And even furthermore, besides the Hear Me Out card, you get another card called the Take a Chance, which is basically, it functions the exact same way as the Hear Me Out card, except for this one costs you a victory point. So basically, they won't want to keep on bogarting the conversation. Yeah. It's all about you. But if you have a really, really good story, we still want to hear it. It just might cost you a victory point because you've already taken over somebody else's turn once and now twice. So... those are kind of the things you can do. Those are the 4 different kinds of categories. Then also at the beginning of the game, you're going to be dealt the Hear Me Out, Take a Chance, and the Nope cards that you can use throughout the game to kind of steer the conversations a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, so basically that's how you play the game. Now let's talk about it a little bit.
Okay, so before we actually talk about the game and the concept, I just want to point out the cover is super loud, right? It's super loud. There's a lot going on. It's very bright and colorful. And sometimes what I see when a box does that is you also can't read what it says. But this does a great job, an amazing job, a brilliant job of making the words super easy and clear to read. You're not going to have somebody going like this while they're playing the game. If you're, taking this over to Thanksgiving or something, I just really, really appreciated it that this party game, the box was bright and vibrant, but I didn't have to figure out what they were trying to do, that they made the words super clear. Thank you.
There are a section of cards called the R-rated cards, which are a little bit more adult and themed, right? But they're all very clearly labeled at the top right corner with a big old R, so you can sort them out and take them out if you want to. So if you're playing with the family setting and you don't think that your aunt or your kids or your grandma or whatever it is wants to hear about a certain topic.
You bring it to youth group and you're like, I got some questions for you.
Like, whoa.
You're fired.
You can simply pluck those cards out and those ones are simply not involved. But at the same time, if you're playing with a group of like-minded adult friends and you want to talk about those slightly more racy or risque issues or whatever, shuffle them back in. And that way you can kind of all have those conversations when those cards come up. But they're very clearly labeled. You take them out very easily. That way you can kind of suit and tailor the game to whoever you're playing with and with the play style that you guys want to play with.
So this was something that was really surprising to me when we were playing this with our daughter. Now, she asks us, our 10-year-old, she asks us all the time for questions about our childhood. And like, when she's like, tell me a story about when you were 8. You're like, I don't even remember being 8. Like, I can't think of anything on the moment. But normally...
When you were a kid, what was your 4th favorite reptile?
Yes, those are the real questions. And those of you with children, you get those questions too. But the really awesome thing about this game is that it like prompted those memories. Because oftentimes those things are there. You just need something to remind you that you have that memory. And so when we were playing this, we're just remembering all these things about our childhood and about our youth. And our daughter was loving it. She was laughing so hard. Some of the stuff wasn't even that funny, but she was just absolutely delighted by what was happening. And it was nice to remember things that I didn't know that I had remembered that just like came out. This would be a perfect reunion game.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Another thing that's interesting is too, this is a great icebreaker style game. So for me personally, and I'm probably some other people who are similar, when you play board games, like let's say a board game meetup or whatever, what's going to happen is you're going to be playing these strategy games or whatever it is, and all the conversation is going to be dominated by the game itself. So I know, like a lot of these people that I game with, I know what their favorite games are, what kind of games they like, what games they're good at, what games they own, what conventions they're going to. I know all these things about like that kind of surface level of friendship, that acquaintanceship that you talk about with the other gamers. But I don't go any deeper than that typically unless it's a much longer term relationship, right?
Yeah. It's also because you're a dude.
Probably. I don't know.
Chicks, when we play games, we know your spouse's name. We know your kid's name. We know your pet's name. We know who your second grade teacher was after like 3 games.
Well, it's kind of a fun story. What that does is it gives you a chance to learn some of those deeper, funny, or maybe more serious conversations that you wouldn't have had with those people otherwise. So it works as a great icebreaker, even amongst people who you're meeting for the first time, or people who you've known for a long time, but just not on that kind of a level. So we have a gaming getaway that we go to every year, and there's people that we don't only see once a year a lot of times, and it's hard to develop those kinds of conversations. This facilitates it for you, which is really, really nice. You have these cool conversations as you're playing this game. Yeah.
So I'm actually not a huge party game person. I don't know why. I never have been a huge party game person, but I was like really pleasantly surprised with this one. I enjoyed it. I would even consider playing it again, which when it comes to party games, just like is not my thing. Like I'm like, I did it, sure, that was fun, okay, let's like do something else. But I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised with this one, because whenever you hear party game, especially any type of story or word party game, you're like, it's just a reskin of apples to apples. It's what you think. And it wasn't, and I was just really happy about that.
For me, I'm similar. I don't like to play party games. It's not my favorite genre of game. However, if I'm going to play a party game, I want it to be one that is going to be a little bit more. There's something to there. There's something there, right? And this one, as far as opening those doors of conversation, there's no better way to start a conversation or to continue a conversation than by asking people questions. And sometimes you don't necessarily have the questions that you know what to ask, right? This provides the questions for you. This has the questions so you don't have to cope with them yourself. And not only that, but people are incentivized to give great answers because they're getting victory points for it as well. I thought it was a cool game. One of the real treasures of it was when you're playing it, you're supposed to go like 7 points or whatever it is based off the number of
Yeah.
players. And what happens is someone doesn't even notice when they have 7 points. The game just keeps on going. Let's do another round or two, Or you can just you can ignore the points entirely and just keep on playing until everyone's had a chance to read off 2 cards.
Yeah.
Or 5 cards or whatever you want to do. It's very, there is a structure to it, but you can also kind of, as a variant, just ignore the structure and just learn about each other and have some fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of a fun story. Great dialogue starter.
Everybody, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you can see our videos as they come out. Until then, we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.